Woodpeckers and Kingfishers, Miss Stewart here with the next part of the English text, Jack and the Beanstalk, pages 4 to 6. If you remember yesterday, Jack sold the family cow Milky White because she no longer produced milk and the family was destitute for 5 magic beans from a peculiar man that he met in the street, on the road. When he came back, Jack was triumphant. He thought he'd done such a good deed, but his mum was furious and threw the beans out of the window. And this is where we're continuing the story. Remember, today you're still writing from Jack's perspective using first person, past tense, and you're going to try and use some imagery, so things like similes, metaphors and personification. Right, here's the second part of Jack and the Beanstalk. When he woke, he thought at first it was moonlight, for everything in the room showed greenish. Then he stared at the little window. It was covered as if with a curtain by leaves. He was out of bed in a second, and the next moment, without waiting to dress, was climbing up the biggest beanstalk you ever saw, for what the peculiar little man had said was true. One of the beans which his mother had chucked into the garden had found soil, taken root and grown in the night. Where? Up to the very sky. Jack meant to see at any rate. So he climbed and he climbed and he climbed. It was easy work, for the big beanstalk with the leaves growing out of each side was like a ladder. For all that he soon was out of breath. Then he got his second wind and was just the beginning to wonder if he had a third, when he saw in front of him a wide shining white road stretching away and away and away. So he took to walking, and he walked and he walked and he walked, till he came to a tall shining white house with a white doorstep. And on the doorstep stood a great big woman with black porridge pot in her hand. Now Jack, having had no dinner, was as hungry as a hunter, and when he saw the porridge pot, he said quite politely, "Good morning, I wondered if you could give me some breakfast." "Breakfast?" echoed the woman, who in truth was an ogre's wife. "If it is breakfast you're wanting, it's breakfast you're likely to be, for I expect my man home every instant, and there is nothing he likes better for breakfast than a fat boy grilled on toast." Now Jack was not a bit of a coward, and when he wanted a thing he generally got it, so he said, cheerful like, "I'll be fatter if I've had my breakfast." Whereat the ogre's wife laughed and bade Jack come in, for she was not really half as bad as she looked. But he had hardly finished the great bowl of porridge and the milk she gave him when the whole house began to tremble and quake. It was the ogre coming home. Thump, thump, thump. "Into the oven with you, sharp!" cried the ogre's wife, and the iron oven door was just closed when the ogre strode in. Jack could see him through the little peephole side at the top where the steam came out. He was a big one for sure. He had 3 sheep strung to his belt, and these he threw down on the table. "Here, wife," he cried, "roast me these snippets for breakfast. They are all I've been able to get this morning, worse luck. I hope the oven's hot." And he went to touch the handle while Jack burst out all of a sweat, wondering what would happen next. "Roast?" echoed the ogre's wife. "Pooh! The little things would dry to cinders. Better boil them." So she set to work to boil them, but the ogre began to sniff about the room. "They don't smell mutton meat," he growled. Then he frowned horribly and began the real ogre rhyme. "Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread." "Don't be silly," said his wife. "It's the bones of the little boy you had for supper that I'm boiling down for soup. Come, eat your breakfast, there's a good ogre." So the ogre ate his 3 sheep, and when he was done he went to a big oaken chest and took out 3 big bags of gold pieces. These he put on the table and began to count their contents, while his wife cleared away the breakfast things. And by his head began to nod, and at last he began to snore, and snored so loudly that the whole house shook. Then Jack nipped out of the oven and seized one of the bags of gold, crept away and ran along the straight, wide, shining white road as fast as his legs would carry him till he came to the beanstalk. He couldn't climb down it with the bag of gold. It was so heavy, so he just flung his burden down first and helter-skelter climbed after it. And when he came to the bottom, there was his mother picking up gold pieces out of the garden as fast as she could, for of course the bag had burst. "Lords of mercy me," she says. "Where have you been? See, it's raining gold." "No, it hasn't," began Jack. "I climbed up." Then he turned to the beanstalk, but lo and behold, it wasn't there at all. So he knew then it was all real magic. After that, they lived happily on the gold pieces for a long time, and the bedridden father got all sorts of nice things to eat. But at last a day came when Jack's mother showed a doleful face as she put the big yellow sovereign into Jack's hand and bade him to be careful marketing, because there was not one more in the coffer. After that, they must starve. So basically, year 5 and 6, they've run out of money. That night, Jack went without dinner to bed of his own accord. If he couldn't make money, he thought, at any rate, he could eat less money. It was a shame for a big boy to stuff himself and bring no grist to the mill. He slept like a top, as boys do when they don't overeat themselves, and when he awoke, hey presto, the whole room was showered green, and there was a curtain of leaves over the window. Another bean had grown in the night, and Jack was up it like a lamplighter before you could say knife. This time he didn't take nearly so long climbing up. He reached the straight, wide, white road, and in a fright he had found himself before the tall white house, where on the wide, white steps the ogre's wife was standing with the black porridge pot in her hand. And this time Jack was as bold as brass. "Good morning, ma'am," he said. "I've come to ask you for breakfast, for I had no supper and I'm hungry as a hunter." "Go away, bad boy," replied the ogre's wife. "Last time I gave you breakfast my man missed a whole bag of gold. I believe you are the same boy." "Maybe I am, maybe I'm not," said Jack with a laugh. "I tell you true when I've had my breakfast, not till then." So the ogre's wife, who was dreadfully curious, gave him a big bowl full of porridge, but before he had half finished it, he heard the ogre coming. Thump, thump, thump. "In with you to the oven," shrieked the ogre's wife. "You shall tell me when he has gone to sleep." This time Jack saw through the steam peephole that the ogre had 3 fat calves strung to his belt. "Better luck today, wife," he cried, and his voice shook the house. "Quick, roast these trifles for my breakfast. I hope the oven's hot." And that year 5 and 6 is where we're leaving the story today. Remember, you're writing from Jack's perspective. Read through the detailed checklist to help you. Good luck. I'm looking forward to seeing you writing. Take care. Speak to you soon. Bye.